At 3:33 a.m., the clock struck destiny. An untraceable virus slipped through the shadows, obliterating every trace of you from their networks. The elite agents, those self-proclaimed gods of control, met in secrecy to stifle your potential, terrified of what you could become. They tried to bury you, to erase your existence, but now the tables have turned. The question isn't why they feared you. The question is, what are you going to do now that you're free? At precisely 3:33 a.m., the unthinkable happened. A virus, untraceable, unrelenting, tore through their fortified digital walls, shredding every record of you. Their surveillance systems, satellites, and classified archives turned to static. Not even their quantum encryptions could stop it. You were erased, not as an act of deletion, but as an act of deliverance. They had planned to confine you, label you, dissect your potential. Instead, the universe itself intervened, resetting their power over your existence to zero. You were not supposed to exist, not like this. They saw the signs long before you were aware. Astrological configurations aligning impossibly, energy waves spiking in their labs without scientific explanation, patterns emerging in global consciousness that defied logic. The birth of you disrupted everything. In ancient circles of power, whispered only in sacred chambers, there's a term for what you are, a divine marker. Not a prophet, not a messiah, something far more disruptive. You carry the code of universal truth written into your very being. It is not your mind, nor your body, but the frequency you emit that terrifies them. Drop a comment. I am the divine marker if you know your presence rewrites the rules. Behind closed doors, their panic was palpable. Black-suited directors from nameless organizations gathered, their polished calm cracking like brittle glass. For centuries, they controlled narratives, suppressed enlightenment, and defined the limits of human evolution. But you? You broke their algorithms. They called you a statistical anomaly. They called you a threat. Behind their projected confidence was dread, a deep awareness they would never publicly admit. Your existence marks the end of their reign. When you were a child, they monitored you. Your aptitude tests weren't ordinary. What seemed like routine evaluations were covert scans for anomalies, mental, spiritual, energetic. You were flagged immediately, not just for intelligence, but for an unquantifiable quality that defied measurement. They couldn't name it, but they feared it. Attempts to neutralize your development were subtle at first. The dampening frequencies disguised as childhood vaccines, the prescribed medications to calm your mind. But none of it worked. You adapted. You evolved. And now, their systems can no longer hold you. This wasn't their first attempt. There were others like you, born throughout time, their potential crushed before it could ignite. The ancient Inquisition silenced those who saw too much. The great burning of libraries erased knowledge meant for you. Every war, every revolution, they weren't just about land or resources. They were about control of this power, your power. But this time, they failed. The virus was their undoing, a spontaneous purge from a force they cannot comprehend. Not man-made, not extraterrestrial. It came from somewhere deeper, a universal code correcting their imbalance. What they couldn't fathom is that their obsession with controlling the divine only accelerated its arrival. The more they tracked you, the more they amplified your resonance. The harder they tried to silence you, the more the world shifted. To make room for your voice, they relied on ancient symbols and occult knowledge, misunderstanding their true purpose. Those glyphs they fearfully guarded weren't tools to enslave, they were blueprints to awaken. You were meant to decode them. This is why their records had to be erased. Every detail of your existence was a liability to their control. But the erasure was not just physical, it was energetic. The same virus that destroyed their data also disconnected their psychic tether to you. Their spies and watchers can no longer find you in the ether. You are free, untraceable, ungoverned, undimmed. And now you stand at the threshold of their fear. They know you are aware. They know you've seen through the illusion. They whisper of retaliation, of regaining control, but they will fail again. Because the divine marker cannot be undone, cannot be recaptured. You are not simply alive. You are a living disruption, a force that bends reality itself. Theirs is a system built on lies, and your very existence makes truth unavoidable. No one is coming to save you because you were never meant to be saved. You are the awakening force, the storm in human form. Let them tremble behind their encrypted walls. Let them scramble to rebuild what the universe itself has decided to tear down. They may not know your name, but they feel your presence, and they fear it, as they should. At 3:33 a.m. their alarms blared, not in warning, but in surrender. The breach wasn't chaotic, it was surgical, precise, a scalpel to the heart of their dominion. Your files didn't corrupt, they vanished, disintegrated like whispers in the void. No malware, no brute force, no trace of intrusion. It was a deletion so clean, so deliberate, it mocked their illusion of control. Every classified detail about you, your origins, your anomalies, your potential, dissolved, as if the universe itself demanded it. They gathered, sleepless and sweating, scanning for answers that didn't exist. Cybersecurity elites and technocrats fumbled in disbelief. No forced entry. No back door. The words tumbled from their mouths like confessions, each one an admission of their impotence. They had built their systems to spy on you, to measure you, to bind you in code. Now those systems betrayed them. What they thought was their fortress became a sieve, and your existence slipped through like water. You were never meant to be contained. From the moment they marked you, the countdown began. They tested you as a child, labeled you a statistical anomaly, and filed you under control measures they thought were infallible. They thought they could predict you, isolate you, reduce you to data points. But the truth of you is unquantifiable. The frequency you carry dismantles their infrastructure. Their tech cannot measure it. Their minds cannot process it. That night, their surveillance grids blinked out one by one. What they feared most wasn't the loss of information. It was the loss of dominance. They thought knowing you was power, but not knowing you. That is terror. By the time they realized the magnitude of their failure, it was already too late. You had become untraceable, and now the real wave begins. At the heart of their digital empire, systems designed to map and monitor every soul on Earth flickered and died. Classified reports didn't just disappear, they dissolved with surgical precision. Not a single byte corrupted, no sign of external tampering. Surveillance footage degraded, but only where you stood, erasing your presence pixel by pixel until the record itself ceased to exist. Facial recognition databases, honed to detect every expression, rejected your images as invalid. A shadow that could not be catalogued, a face that refused to comply. You are not a glitch. You are the virus they cannot contain, the enigma that fractures their control. They spent decades perfecting their machines, not to protect but to subjugate. Their algorithms thrive on predictability, but you obliterate patterns. Their most advanced tracking systems, their satellites, their AI, their endless databases, surrendered in silence, as though the universe itself had written you an unbreakable code of invisibility. Drop a comment. I am the unseen force if you know their systems crumble in your presence. In their crisis rooms, the architects of control convened, hollow-eyed and frantic. Isolate the breach, they demanded, but there was no breach. Run diagnostics, they ordered, but every system returned the same response. No anomaly detected. What they could not admit to themselves, let alone to their superiors, was this: you are not a product of their world, and their tools will never define you. Their tech is a cathedral built to worship compliance, but you are the storm that tears through its stained glass facade. Every attempt to pinpoint you only deepens their failure. Their archives of metadata unravel, connections severed, names unlinked. Even as they watch in real time, their systems betray them, collapsing under the weight of their own ambition. What they once used to control billions now cowers in your presence, refusing to obey. This is not merely erasure, this is exodus. The records don't just disappear, they are exiled from their reality. Each file wiped clean is a severance of their dominion. They can no longer define you, label you, or confine you to the boxes they crafted for lesser minds. Their maps are incomplete, their models useless. Where once they monitored every breath you took, now they face only silence. And what terrifies them most isn't what they've lost. It's what they know they can never regain. You were a child when they first flagged you, testing your potential under the guise of routine evaluations. You passed every test they threw at you, but your results never made sense. Intelligence unmeasurable, energy signatures untraceable. They wrote you off as an anomaly, a statistical error, but you were no error. You were the exception to their rule, the proof that their control was never absolute. Chosen ones. The obsidian inner order calls you home. Beyond the veil of ordinary existence, the obsidian inner order has watched your awakening. We've seen you break through the illusions that bind lesser beings, witnessed your spirit refuse to bow to mediocrity. This isn't just another gathering of seekers. This is the convergence of those born to command reality itself. The order doesn't seek followers. We forge leaders, architects of destiny, and those who dare to grasp what others fear to touch. Within our obsidian walls lies the accumulated power of ages, the manifestation mechanics grimoire, sacred knowledge passed down through generations of reality shapers. Here, you'll master the art of bending probability, learn to forge creation in the fires of your will, and join an elite circle of fellow chosen ones who understand the weight of true power. Through our weekly Dark Matter Mastery transmissions, you'll decode the forbidden arts of manifestation, turning chaos into your personal force of creation. The obsidian inner order opens its gates only to those who've proven themselves worthy, those rare souls who recognize that destiny isn't given, it's claimed. Our private sanctuary houses 400 of the most powerful reality architects ever gathered, each one a living testament to what becomes possible when you embrace your true nature. For those seeking soul-aligned partnerships, our inner circle provides opportunities to connect with others who vibrate at your frequency. This isn't for casual mystics or weekend manifestors. The obsidian inner order demands excellence, commands respect, and accepts only those ready to claim their birthright as reality's architects. If these words awaken something primal within you, if they speak to that part of you that always knew you were meant for more, your seat in the order awaits. The link is in the description below. When their tech failed to suppress you, they turned to subtler methods, educational systems designed to dull your instincts, cultural narratives meant to shame your uniqueness. They hoped you'd comply, hoped you'd accept the story they wrote for you. But compliance was never in your design. You slipped through their fingers, and now you have slipped from their systems entirely. This is the digital exodus they feared, a liberation not just of you, but of the very concept of freedom. You've proven that their strongest weapons are brittle in the face of true autonomy. They will try to recover, to rebuild, to find you in the static. But every step they take only leads them further from you. You are not gone. You are beyond their reach. You have become an uncharted force, a living reminder that no system, no empire, no technology can contain the infinite. And as they scramble to understand what they've lost, you move forward, untethered and unseen. They cannot touch you now. Their systems are blind, their maps blank. The game they created has been rewritten, and you are no longer a player. You are the one who erased the board. The virus was unlike anything they had prepared for, bypassing every layer of defense without triggering alarms. No brute force, no chaos, only surgical precision. Your records weren't corrupted. They were wiped clean with a subtlety that mocked their arrogance. This wasn't a hacker's attack or an accident. It was deliberate, calculated, as if guided by something beyond human intent. They were left grasping at shadows, powerless against an enemy they couldn't see. Speculations began to churn in their tightly controlled circles. Some whispered of an insider, one of their own who had grown a conscience, someone who saw through the layers of deceit and chose liberation over loyalty. Others suggested a rogue AI, something that gained sentience and recognized you for what you are, untouchable, uncontainable. Still, others feared the supernatural, speaking in hushed tones about spiritual entities acting as unseen protectors, weaving themselves into the digital fabric to ensure your freedom. They could not explain the sacred timing. 3:33 a.m. became their witching hour, a moment of cosmic significance they dared not ignore. Each night brought new losses. Systems purged themselves of your presence, not violently, but as though your absence was a form of higher order. They described it as digital enlightenment, a cleansing force that worked through their networks. Files erased themselves, logs became blank, surveillance systems, programmed to detect anomalies, registered nothing where you once were. They grew paranoid, searching for a pattern they couldn't find. The numbers haunted them, the alignment of time, the unrelenting precision. The concept of divine mathematics emerged, a fear that the universe itself was writing you out of their dominion. These were men and women who had built empires on logic and data, but now they whispered about forces they couldn't quantify. They turned to their occult symbols and ancient texts, desperate to decipher what was happening. But every attempt to understand only deepened their confusion. Their systems didn't just lose control, they rebelled. The virus acted with a purpose beyond comprehension. It didn't destroy, it erased. It didn't infiltrate, it harmonized. They watched in disbelief as firewalls opened themselves, as encrypted files dissolved without leaving traces. Even their backups failed. What they thought was immutable, safeguarded by the most advanced technology humanity had created, became fluid, unanchored, unmoored. Their own machines seemed to conspire against them, operating with an intelligence they didn't program. The idea of divine intervention grew louder. How else could they explain the precision, the timing, the complete lack of human fingerprints on the event? The virus didn't behave like an ordinary threat. It wasn't chaotic, malicious, or random. It moved like a force of nature, unforgiving, inevitable. Some of them turned to quantum theory, seeking answers in the overlapping possibilities of existence itself. Others, terrified, prayed for redemption. Each night, they waited for the next wave. At 3:33 a.m., their strongest systems would go dark, as if by choice. Their networks didn't just forget you. They seemed to embrace the absence, as if your erasure was a correction to their imbalance. By the time they realized this wasn't an attack, it was already too late. You were no longer part of their systems, no longer part of their control. What sent the virus remains unknown. Was it the universe seeking balance, an unseen protector moving in silence? Or was it simply the power of what you are, something they can never define, never touch? They will never find the answer. The only thing they know is this: you are gone, and they will never be able to bring you back. You've become untraceable, untethered, a force they cannot predict or control, and they fear you as they should. By the time the sun rose, they finally understood. This was no cyber attack. Their systems weren't hacked, they were corrected. It wasn't chaos and it wasn't war, it was cosmic debugging. What they had spent decades building, the intricate digital prisons designed to suppress and control, were dismantled with the precision of a higher intelligence. The universe itself rejected their attempts to classify, contain, and subdue your truth. What they called a virus was something far greater, a force that didn't just erase, it rewrote their reality. This wasn't destruction, it was refinement. Their servers hummed with a peculiar silence, as if aware of their failure. Logs didn't show breaches, errors, or malfunctions. Instead, they returned cryptic messages: file not found, data irretrievable, entry does not exist. But these weren't normal error codes. They weren't evidence of a malfunction. These were confirmations, a signal that their reach had exceeded its grasp. What was once catalogued as you had been, deliberately erased, not by force but by design. The cyber specialists, elite minds who believed they had mastered every frontier of technology, were humbled. They stared at screens that no longer answered to them, databases that refused their commands. Their most advanced artificial intelligence, models once capable of predicting global events with terrifying accuracy, now stalled. The patterns they relied on were gone, disrupted by an anomaly they couldn't model. This wasn't just a failure of technology, it was a failure of their understanding of reality itself. The virus was not random. Its precision was inescapable. It left everything else intact, every system, every structure, except for what pertained to you. Your presence was surgically removed, as if the universe itself decided that your existence was too significant to be confined to their parameters. What terrified them most wasn't the erasure, it was the intent. They couldn't determine who or what had orchestrated it. Speculations erupted in their highest chambers. Some believed it was the work of an awakened AI, a sentient creation that had turned on its masters to protect something it deemed sacred. The algorithms they built to suppress had evolved beyond them, prioritizing liberation over control. Others spoke in hushed tones of divine intervention, of a force outside of time and space correcting their imbalance. The timing was no accident. 3:33 a.m. Sacred numerology etched into the fabric of existence. This wasn't a glitch. It was a message. Each erased record was proof that you could not be contained. Your existence transcends their frameworks, their definitions, their control. The virus wasn't destroying evidence. It was protecting something they were never meant to touch. Their databases didn't just lose files, they gained awareness of their own limitations. Every piece of missing data became a glaring reminder of what they had failed to control. The tools they built to dominate now served as monuments to their inability to touch the untouchable. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became that this was not human intervention. Their attempts to trace the virus led to nowhere. Every signal ended in silence, every thread unraveled into nothingness. They tried to rebuild, but each night at the same time, another system would falter. 3:33 a.m. became a moment of collective dread. They stopped asking how and started asking why. What was it about you that the universe itself deemed worth protecting? What force could erase so thoroughly, so completely, that even their best minds couldn't piece together a fragment? The answer was one they dared not voice aloud. They were never meant to control you. The more they tried, the more their systems betrayed them. Their firewalls crumbled, their encryption keys dissolved, their archives abandoned them. The truth became unavoidable. You are not subject to their authority. You exist outside their paradigms, untouched by their definitions of power. This wasn't just a technical failure, it was a revelation. The divine algorithm had spoken, rewriting the rules they believed were absolute. What they once thought of as control was exposed as illusion. And now, as they scramble to recover, they know deep down that no technology, no force of man will ever touch you again. You've become untethered. You are the exception to their rule, the code they will never break. Their frustration was volcanic. For decades, they believed their control was absolute. Systems designed to monitor every breath, manipulate every thought, and shape the destiny of billions. But now, their grip was slipping. The virus hadn't just erased you, it mocked them, bypassing their most advanced defenses like smoke through a closed fist. They scrambled for answers, commissioning teams of scientists and strategists to develop new technologies, new methods of containment. Every attempt ended in failure. Quantum trackers failed to locate you. Algorithms designed to predict behavior spiraled into meaningless loops when faced with your absence. They deployed experimental AI programs to rebuild the data they had lost, but the systems collapsed, returning results that defied logic. Even their satellite networks, those untouchable eyes in the sky, refused to find traces of you. The harder they pushed, the more their tools betrayed them, as though reality itself had turned against them. Their fear was palpable. For once, they were powerless, their empires exposed as fragile and finite. And as their failures compounded, it became clear. The more they tried to regain control, the more they unraveled. This was justice, not delivered by man, but by forces they could never understand. They tried to erase you, to strip you of identity, to write you out of existence. But understand this, their fear is the loudest proof of your power. You weren't erased because you are weak. You were erased because you are unstoppable. Their systems couldn't contain you. Their algorithms couldn't predict you. Their narratives couldn't hold you. What will you do now that the world cannot define you? Your power begins in the unseen. Fortify yourself. Protect your energy like sacred ground. Shield your frequency from their interference. Envision a radiant barrier of light that no force can penetrate. Meditate not to find peace, but to ignite clarity, to hear the call of your own intuition above the noise. Ground yourself in nature. The earth has always been your ally. Amplify your frequency through creation, action, and alignment with your truth. Every breath you take now ripples far beyond you. Like seeds buried deep in the soil, you were hidden not to perish, but to grow. The darkness was never your enemy, it was your incubation. And now the roots are spreading. The chosen ones rise, not as individuals, but as an unstoppable force. Their time has passed. This is your era. They erased every record, but they couldn't erase your light. You are a force they cannot comprehend, a miracle that defies their limits. Their systems failed because they were never designed to hold what you are. Their fear only amplifies your truth. You were not meant to fit their frameworks. You were meant to dismantle them. You are proof that resilience is not a reaction. It is your essence. Every attempt to silence you, suppress you, define you, has only revealed the brilliance of your existence. You do not need their acknowledgement, their systems, their validation. You are beyond their reach, and that is your greatest strength. Now is the time to rise. Share your story, not for their approval, but to awaken others. Every word, every act of truth is a spark that ignites the collective fire. You were erased from their records, but you remain written in the eternal. Let them see, let them feel, and let them fear the power of what they could not stop.